Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another Auto Talk driving review. This week we are in the 2015 Audi A3 sedan with the TDI diesel.
The Audi A3 sedan is all new for 2015, and that is not just marketing talk. There's never been an A3 sedan before this year. The new car looks a lot like a smaller A4, but somehow a bit more taut and aggressive. The sharp angles that dominate every surface, including the beautiful headlamps and dynamic taillights, feel fresh and modern for the German company. The gigantic sunroof and slick alloy wheels help add to the overall luxury look as well. If you wanted a beautiful compact car, this thing certainly fits the bill.
So, the outside of the Audi looks amazing, but the Germans have always done very good interiors, and especially Audi. Audi always seems to have some of the best interiors. Now, it does seem, at least from a first glance, like they do that sort of German thing where it's all very dark. I've got a black dash and a black wheel and a black center console. But I also have these beautiful dark brown seats, and there's lots of little bright work. So I've got these nice, like, knurled trim knobs for the vents. These are actually the vent shutoffs, closed and open. I've got the metal work here around my shift knob. Of course, this steering wheel and the shift knob is a very, very soft leather. I've got this fantastic little futuristic sort of trim here. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. It's just very modern and very crisp. I really like the way it looks. And everything just feels really nice. Fit and finish is fantastic. The steering wheel is sculpted in about 9 different ways. It's very hard to tell. So right here it sculpts in, it's kind of flat. And you have big, deep thumb grooves. Then it thickens out if you like to hold here. Then right on this bottom edge, it's actually flatter here, and there's a little kink out at the bottom, so your hands will catch. And then at the bottom, it sort of squares off, and then it dishes very shallowly right at the very bottom. So it's a very purposefully shaped wheel that once you get to sawing around in some corners is really great to hold on to. Again, like one of my favorite parts is this catch on the outside edge. So you make a hard turn and you want to slide your hand out a bit. Your hand just sort of naturally catches the little steering wheel in the groove to get you to go back the other direction. It's wonderful. So again, that's sort of the way it all looks. Again, feel and fit and finish is fantastic. The way these little rotating knobs fit onto the dash is great. There's almost no gap. The vents are these rotating balls that are inside, and they fit extremely well, very tight gaps. The dash panel gaps around the screen are very tight. Panel gaps here are very tight. Of course, the stitching gaps on the steering wheel and the seats are very nice. It all fits together extremely well. It's all very comfy. The seats are great. They adjust. Let's see, you've got lumbar forward and back and lumbar up and down. And the seat goes forward and back, and then the front of the seat goes up and down, and the back of the seat goes up and down, and the actual seat back goes forward and backwards. And then I can manually adjust the distance that the thigh bolster will go. So really easy to get just the right seating position. Steering wheel is also tilt and telescope, so you can get that set just where you want to. The only thing that doesn't move to get you in the right position is the pedals, but frankly they don't need to. They're really great. They're well placed. There is no clutch pedal, but the hole for the clutch is there, and it's like my left foot falls exactly where it needs to be if there would be a clutch, and then there's the big dead pedal. Then of course big brake, and the brake and the gas pedal are positioned close enough together that you can throttle match pretty nicely. This car comes with the 2-liter diesel, so it is Audi's clean TDI diesel. It makes 150 horsepower and 238 pound-feet of torque, so it's a little bit of a boost over the diesel that came in the old A3 wagon and what I have in like my Volkswagen Golf diesel. Mated to that is Audi's S-Tronic 6-speed automatic transmission. So it's got drive mode, sport mode, and then I can put it in a little choose your own mode. It's got some flappy paddles here. That works pretty well, but we'll get to that in a few seconds. I do have Audi's full MMI system, so I have navigation, satellite radio, full media access, access to apps, telephone system. It's all controlled by this one fantastic little knob here that I can also draw on. So instead of the old school system where they had the big knob and then the touchpad, they've now integrated the touchpad into the top of the knob. So the knob does not move forward, back, left, or right. It just rotates. But then you have 4 contact buttons that, based on what shows up on the top of the screen, will control what you need to do. Storage-wise, storage is a little shallow in here. I know it's a small car, but so we've got door pockets that will hold a small bottle, 2 cup holders up front with a shallow tray up front, and then a very shallow little phone tray here with a connection for a old iPod. It's the Apple 30-pin connector. I don't know why they're not using a lightning connector or a USB port, but that's what we have. And then I've got a glove box, which is kind of shallow and small, and then another door pocket. Otherwise, that's it. There's no cubby up top for my sunglasses. So if you want to take it on a road trip, you're going to have to pack a little carefully to make sure that you can get all your small little snacks and phones and stuff sort of sorted away in a place that they won't get into any trouble. One thing that I don't like is there is an electronic parking brake, and it's down here at the back. And on one situation, granted I was parked, I needed to get into the cubby holder, and I was outside of the car. So I parked the car, gotten out, and I was talking to somebody across the way, and I reached in and just sort of dragged my hand across the dash looking for the catch for this, because there's no latch, it just lifts up, and I managed to get my finger onto the parking brake and lock the parking brake. So that's a little awkward. Plus I don't like that it's here on the dash, because people who eat or drink in their car, you might get stuff spilled down in that little latch, and a malfunctioning electronic parking brake sounds like a nightmare. So otherwise, the car's great. Again, I've got the navigation system. I have the upgraded Bang & Olufsen audio, which sounds amazing. I've put a whole bunch of stuff through satellite radio. I've been streaming a bunch off of Bluetooth. It all sounds really good. I like the way it sounds. Other sort of nice features I've got, I do have Audi's side alert system, which is just a blind spot monitor. I've got a backup camera, stuff like that. I actually have a lot of equipment on this that I didn't have on the Mercedes GLA I had just 2 weeks ago. So on the GLA, I did not have satellite radio, I didn't have a backup camera, and I did not have climate control. Here I have dual zone climate control and a backup camera and navigation. I still have a big gigantic sunroof, but it's not as big as one that came in the Mercedes. And I also do not have all-wheel drive. So this model with the diesel does not have quattro, because this is focused on fuel economy. So the Mercedes wins in driven wheels because it had 4. Otherwise, they're very similar, I think, in function. One is just an SUV, and this one's a sedan. This is a little bit smaller, but it's nicer inside. So let's stop gabbing about that, and let's actually take this thing for a drive and see how it does. So driving the A3 TDI is a lot like driving Audi's other TDIs. So basically fantastic. So having all that deep low-end torque is awesome. The turbo comes on to full spool at about 1700 RPMs. So from mostly a dead stop, you have full torque. The car will just lurch itself away. This transmission, if you put it in the little sport mode, responds pretty well. It shifts quickly. If you slam on the brakes, it will actually downshift for you as you're braking to help keep you in the right rev range to where you need to go. But like all diesels, it also has no real range to the RPM gauge. So the red line is at 5,000, but it will always shift at about 4,500 instead of keeping you all the way out to 5. It doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but on a sort of tight, twisty road with like medium to slow speeds, it really starts to hamper the driving experience. So I took it to the Tail of the Dragon. I only had a few days with this car, so I really wanted to give it a thorough workout. So I thought I'll take it to the Tail of the Dragon, and then I can really push it to see what it's like. In that range of driving where you're going from 30 to 50, 30 to 50, 30 to 50 on a twisty road, there's a big gap in the ratios. So the gap from second gear to third gear in this car is pretty big. So what ends up happening is I have to shift to third because I hit the 4,500 RPMs, but then almost immediately I have to slow down for a corner, and I have to wait for the car to slow way down before I can shift to second to get enough power to pull out of that bend. And then I pull out of that bend, and almost halfway through it, I've already hit my rev range again, and it shifts me back into third. So if third was just a little bit lower or second was just a little bit taller, it'd be a little nicer. But I get why they did it. It's all for trying to balance that perfection of fuel economy and performance. So on the performance front, this car is not extremely fast. Audi claims 0 to 60 is 8.1 seconds. I can say that I've pretty much matched that 8-second range. There was a couple of times where maybe I just got off a little bit quicker than the clock. I saw just under 8, but for the most part it was 7 to 8, 8.2, right in the 8-second mark. Top speed is 130 miles an hour. That is electronically limited for America. I haven't been able to find any info if it'll actually go faster in Europe or not, but Audi makes sure to mention it is electronically limited in the USA. So there might be some difference there if you're an overseas buyer. Steering wheel, again, I already talked about how great the steering wheel is to hold. Steering is also good while you're driving. Weight is good, direction's very good, car responds immediately. There's a fair bit of feedback, although still not quite as much as I want coming through the road to my hands, but otherwise it's pretty good. If I had a complaint about the steering, it would be I'd like a tighter rack. So you have to turn the wheel more than you think you should to make a turn. Again, it is very linear, so like as you keep turning, the car sort of responds exactly the way you expect it to. You just have to turn a bit more than you might want to. That became really obvious on the Dragon, where some of those tighter turns, I always ended up, crossed over arms trying to make a complete turn. Otherwise, though, again, it's a fantastic little thing to drive. Throttle response is on point. Brakes are very good. They resist fade fairly well. Coming down the Dragon, I did start to get some fade. I did start to get some squish. The car did take a little bit longer to stop. But considering I was beating on it really, really hard, I thought the brakes did a fantastic job. Again, this isn't a track machine. This is supposed to be a sporty but extremely luxurious commuter car. And it's that aspect that it does phenomenally well at. So we're riding along, and it is whisper quiet in here. Like, strange how quiet it is, considering how small of a car it is. Small cars have always been sort of cheap and tinny, and this isn't. There have been a couple times where I've been sitting on the road and I've seen obnoxiously loud trucks go by, and hardly any of that noise permeates the cabin. When you're on the road noise is very subdued. Wind noise is very subdued. There's very little outside audio that you pick up inside the cabin. So I appreciate that. Again, the seats are very comfortable. The suspension is actually really comfortable. I have it in dynamic mode right now, which has tighter steering and better throttle pickup. But you can put it in comfort mode, which makes everything a little bit softer. So throttle's a little lazier, steering gets a little bit lighter, and you can just sort of relax. And again, the suspension is stiff enough to make it an okay handler, but not brutal. So you'll bounce a little bit over bumps, but none of it feels harsh. Otherwise, you sort of sit back and relax. You can set the cruise control, and the car will just drag you on its merry little way. It will be extremely fuel efficient while doing that. So again, that's the big reason with going with the diesel. The window sticker says you will get 43 miles to the gallon on the highway, which is very impressive. In my testing, though, that number has been way closer to 51. I had to drive to the airport a few times this last week. So on my standard 55 mile an hour, 60 mile an hour jaunt down the highway to get to where I'm going, I averaged 50.6 on one trip, 50.9 on another trip, 51.3, and then 49.2. So right around that 50 mile per gallon range, closing in on 51. So the car is extremely efficient. Part of it comes down to this 6-speed auto. The gears are quick to shift, and the car is more than happy to drop you gears and just let the engine, the torque of the engine, do the work. So instead of having to keep a car, high in the rev range to get speed for passing, the car will let me put some pedal in and use the low-end grunt of the turbocharged diesel to sort of pull me across the passing lane rather than downshifting and revving the snot out of the engine. So for example, I'm cruising at 55 miles an hour right now in 6th gear, and I'm turning less than 1,500 RPMs. So the engine spins really slowly, uses almost no fuel. It's fantastic. So overall, I really dig this thing. It's nice to see a small car that doesn't feel like a small car. For a long time, me and a lot of other professionals in the business have been saying people will buy really nice luxury cars. Even if they're small, they don't have to be gigantic. And I think the A3 is a good example of that. This has everything 90% of people need. Even if you're a Mercedes buyer or an Audi buyer or a BMW buyer, somebody who wants something really luxurious and German, this is everything you need. I've got heated seats, I've got leather, I've got sat nav, I've got an amazing stereo, satellite radio, like all of it is just here. But I can cruise along in comfort and quiet, open my little sunroof, have daylight drop in on me. It's a wonderful thing. The only real downside is if you're going to take a small car and give it all the luxury amenities of a big expensive car, it still kind of gets big and expensive. So while the car may be small, the price tag is anything but. So again, here we go, 2015 Audi A3 TDI. Now this is it's front wheel drive, there's no all wheel drive. Like I said, I have the S-tronic transmission. And final price tag on this machine is $43,295. So considering it's the size of a Volkswagen Jetta, that is insane amounts of money. But it's equipped as well as an E90 M3, Like, I've been in last gen M3s, and they weren't this nice inside. The interior wasn't as good. The infotainment system didn't work as good. The steering wheel didn't feel as nice in an M3. So you get M3 levels of equipment if you don't get M3 performance. But it's like everything that you want is here. And a lot of that does come down to the various option packages. So the beautiful white paint that you see is called a Glacier White Metallic. That was $500. This is the Prestige model, which comes with the 18-inch alloys and the power folding mirrors that are heated and the heated seats, and all of the mirrors will automatically dim. And of course, I've got the big MMI with the navigation, LED lighting inside, like all of that stuff with the LED headlights was an $8,500 option. So that's where most of the money for this car comes from, is that Prestige model package. Also, I've got the Sport package, which is these nice sports seats and the little drive select control that lets me do comfort or dynamic mode. That was almost $1,000. So if you want to get rid of some of the niceties, you can get this car with this fuel economy and most of this interior, and it won't cost you that much. But if you want to have, I mean, this is upper level BMW 5 Series, Audi A6. I mean, this is the same equipment you get in a big luxury car. It's just a small luxury car, so the fuel economy is better. It's easier to park, it's easier to drive around town, that sort of stuff. So if you're like me and you've been crying out for a legitimate luxury machine that is actually just smaller, instead of making you get a cheap gross car for your small size, this is what you're looking for. It has everything you need. And right now I'm doing 49.8 miles to the gallon. Fuel economy for days, extremely comfortable, extremely quiet. You have all that low down grunt and torque. So if you really want to, you can drop it over into manual mode, kick down a few cogs, fling it into a corner. The car will bite and grip on those big 18-inch alloys. You can swing it through. There's very little understeer. And then you get back to the highway, drop it back into automatic, hit the little comfort mode button, and continue on with your life. So anyways, thank you for watching. Again, I am Christian Moe for AutoTalk.com. I hope you've enjoyed this little video. If you did, please go ahead and like and leave us a comment as to what you enjoyed. If you didn't like it, please go ahead and leave us a thumbs down and let us know why. We want to make these videos better. We want them better for you. So the only way I can do that is if you tell me what I'm doing wrong. Anyways, once again, Christian Moe, AutoTalk.com. You can find the full written review and a bunch of pictures of this beautiful machine on our website, AutoTalk.com. And I'll see you guys next week. Thanks.